So we have some breaking news that Andrew Yang is suing New York over the canceled Democratic primary in that state. This is something we've been covering for the past week or so, because ever since Bernie Sanders decided to suspend his campaign and endorse Joe Biden, there was an effort in New York State to effectively cancel the presidential primary, because under the regulations there, technically, they can remove someone from the ballot, even if they have the right to be on the ballot, if they have suspended their campaign. And my focus was on how this was limiting Bernie Sanders from winning delegates. But to his credit, Andrew Yang and many others in New York State, some people who were poised to be Andrew Yang delegates, are arguing that this hurts Andrew Yang as well. And Yang, if we recall, endorsed Joe Biden when the primary was still active. So this isn't even an anti-Biden, anti-DNC move. Andrew Yang is making it very clear, as he did on Twitter, that voting is kind of a big deal, and that every person in New York State should have the right to express their position in the presidential primary, even if it's almost certainly the case that Joe Biden is going to end up the nominee. If somebody wants to go to that primary and vote for Biden or Yang or Bernie or anyone else who has the right to be on the ballot and wishes to remain on the ballot, they should have that ability, and it should be unimpeded. And the delegates that result from those votes should go to the appropriate candidate, even if Joe Biden is the presumptive nominee. Yang makes this clear that it's fundamentally about people's right to vote and express themselves. No matter how done, quote unquote, the Democratic presidential primary process is, millions and millions and millions of people, dozens of states, haven't had their right to vote yet. They haven't had their right to express their input. You might see that as a formality, but for many of those people, it's their one voice in this actual primary. Many of them have volunteered and donated and canvassed and poured out all of their being for a candidate of their choice. Whether that's Yang, whether that's Bernie, and even if it's quote unquote over, I would never want to deny those people their right to go to a voting booth or to vote by mail for the person they supported. That is very important to see. And I think Yang here, again, somebody who backed Biden, is taking a real stand of principle. And I think we should all really respect that. You know, on this channel, I've been critical of Andrew Yang before. Critical of his Biden endorsement, critical of his approach to Medicare for all, critical of his style of basic income. But when the chips were down here, Andrew Yang is fighting for democracy, and we should all rally around him and those that are alongside him in this battle with New York State. It's also about the pragmatics of the down ballot race. The presidential primary is not the only primary. It's often the showstopper, the showcase, the main event. But there are often many, many, many races down ballot after the presidential primary. People who are running for congressional and Senate primaries, people who are running even for more local races. And those votes are very important. Those votes will decide who gets to run in the general election. And in some seats that are very strongly Democratic, those votes effectively determine who the next congressperson from a certain part of New York State or another state is. And so Yang is right to note, and people around Bernie have been right to note, that this is going to suppress turnout in some of those races. That when you take away the presidential primary, even if it's quote unquote over, you're taking away some people, at least some people, that were going to vote in the primary, that are now going to ignore down ballot races. And maybe this is going to especially affect challengers. Incumbents might be fine, but this could be a move, whether intentional or unintentional, to really hurt those challenging the existing political status quo. And I think that's something very concerning. By taking somebody like Yang and someone like Bernie off the ballot, you may be removing the sort of Democrats that were in this process to make a difference. Again, I didn't always agree with Yang and his supporters, but you can't deny the fact that they were there. They were fighting for a new path forward. Ultimately, this was a very, very bad decision by the New York State Democratic representatives on the Board of Elections. There's nothing to be gained by doing this. The only thing that can happen as a result of this is fracturing the already fragile state of unity within the Democratic Party. You have a pretty lucky scenario, given so many people running for the nomination, to have basically everyone line up behind Joe Biden enthusiastically and very early. Yang did it, even Bernie did it. But by doing this, by taking their names off the ballot, by angering their activists, their supporters, their base, all you're doing is giving those people who were on the edge about whether or not they were going to support Biden and the Democratic Party one more reason to sit on the sideline, to vote third party, to maybe still vote for you, but not donate or volunteer for you. And in close races, New York's not going to be close, but in close races across the country, because people are angry about this move everywhere, not just in New York, this will hurt the Democratic Party. 100%. Mark my words that if this is a close election, this move by New York Democrats could literally re-elect Trump and literally cost the Democrats the House and or Senate. I am not exaggerating. This could be that disastrous. This lawsuit, this move by some Bernie supporters and some Yang supporters to reverse this absurd decision could well be what's needed to help keep the unity to defeat Donald Trump. If the Democratic Party goes through with this decision in New York, they are showing that they would rather spit at Bernie Sanders supporters and Andrew Yang supporters than have everyone together in November to defeat Donald Trump.